Hey, you know what? No one has ever said, I absolutely positively love the TSA and airport security and standing in line for hours on end. No one has ever said, I absolutely detest getting a massage. No one has ever said, wow, your Facebook post about politics has changed my mind and my vote. No one has ever said life was fair. But wait, there's more. No one has ever said, I plan on getting 60 pounds overweight and ruining my health. No one has ever said, I plan to overspend, to create some financial ruin in my life and ultimately declare bankruptcy. No one has ever said, wow, you know what? I plan on getting addicted to some substance. No one has ever said, I plan on absolutely positively wrecking my relationships and ruining my marriage. No one has ever said, I plan to hide, and then I'm going to lie, and then I'm going to lie some more, and then I'm going to lose the trust of my family, and I'm going to lose the trust of my friends. You see, most people, they don't plan on wrecking their lives. The problem is this: many people, they don't plan not to. Over the last several weeks, we've been talking about the power of our decisions. Our decisions define our direction. The decisions you make today will define the direction of your life. And if you don't like the direction that your life is going, well, then you need to make different decisions. The quality of your decisions determines the quality of your life. And that's why it is extremely important that we decide in advance. We pre-decide, we make the decision ahead of time, especially in those situations that we know without a shadow of a doubt that we're going to face in the future. In other words, we pre-decide now how we're going to behave, how we're going to react when we find ourselves in a particular situation in the future. Because when our values are clear, when we know who we are, what we stand for, what we believe, when our values are clear, our decisions are easier. Let me ask you, have you ever given in to temptation? Did you ever wonder why? I mean, why did you give in to that temptation? It's because you were not ready. St. Paul, in his first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 16, says it like this: be on guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong, do everything in love. Paul, that great apostle Paul, says, be on guard. You can hear the earnestness. You can hear the warning in his voice. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 26, watch and pray that you do not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. Jesus tells us to watch and pray. I mean, why? Why does Paul tell us to be on guard and Jesus says, watch and pray? Because your enemy is roaring around like a lion looking for someone to devour. My friends, the truth is the devil is coming for you. He wants to steal your joy. The father of all lies wants to destroy your mission, wants to mess up your purpose in life. St. Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians chapter 2, for this is why I wrote, so that we would not be outwitted by Satan, for we are not ignorant of his designs. You know, in other words, Paul says, this is the reason I wrote, so that we're not outsmarted, so that we're not tricked, so we don't fall prey to Satan. For we're not ignorant, and we know that he's out there. We know that his purpose is to steal our joy, to destroy our lives. See, my friends, you're not as strong as you think. You know, so often we think more highly of ourselves than we ought. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, therefore, let anyone who thinks that he stands take heed, lest he fall. I mean, look at that warning. Therefore, if anyone thinks that they're strong enough, that they have enough willpower, they have enough fortitude, take heed, be on guard, be aware, lest you fall. See, we have this tendency to overestimate our ability to resist. Social sciences, they call it restraint bias. Okay, we've got this restraint bias. We think we're stronger. We think we've got the willpower. We think we've got the ability. But the truth is, our willpower wanes. Our willpower wears out. Have you ever experienced this? You go to work in the morning and people are coming at you from all different directions all day long, you stand firm, right? You resist the temptation to get angry. You resist the temptation to lose your cool. And then you go home, you walk through the door, and immediately you blow up. You lose it. There you are, losing your temper with the very people that you're the closest with, the people that you love. Or how about this? You're trying to lose weight, right? We're trying to be healthier. We're trying to lose a few pounds. And yet you open up the freezer, and there's all kinds of ice cream, deep fried Twinkies dipped in chocolate. Okay, what's going to happen? We keep those unhealthy snacks around. Sooner or later, the temptation, we're going to give in. Or you're trying to watch your spending, and yet you keep this extremely high credit card limit. It's so easy just to call in a number. It's already pre-programmed in your computer. You see, willpower is a limited resource, and that's why it is imperative that we decide in advance how we're going to behave, how we're going to act, how we're going to react in certain situations. And so I want to give you some very practical advice today. The first one is this. You ready? Move the line. Move the line. Have you ever noticed we always wonder, how can I get close to the line without going over it? For instance, if I were to draw a line in the sand, and on this side of the line, we're in God's will. On this side of the line, we're safe. On this side of the line, we're not sinning, right? All is well. But when you cross the line, well, then you're out of God's will. When you cross the line, you're getting yourself into trouble. You're sinning, right? Have you ever noticed we always wonder, how close to the line can I get without sinning? I mean, for instance, you're dating, right? And it's how close can I get? How far can I go? What can I do? What's appropriate? What's proper? What's not? And we always try to take it right up to the line. Well, we do that in some things in life, but we don't do it in other things in life. I mean, for instance, if you're a pilot, you're not going to say, well, how close to the line can I get? I mean, exactly how much fuel do I need in the aircraft to really push it to get to my destination? No. You're not going to think that way. You're going to make sure you have more than enough fuel. So you see, move the line. Instead of just like seeing how close to the line can you get, you take a step back and you move the line. So how does this play out in real world? How does this play out in our everyday life? If you have a tendency to buy too much on Amazon, to just type in and click pay now type thing, well, maybe you need to do a couple things. Maybe you give a friend or a loved one your password, and you can't purchase anything without their approval, without them giving you the password. Or you you pre-decide a limit, and you don't go over the limit, although that's probably going to be pretty difficult. Or maybe you spend way too much time on Facebook. Maybe you need an accountability partner who every time you're on your cell phone, they hold you accountable. They call you out. You can take a look at your screen time on your iPhone or your cell phone. Or maybe you're spending too much time out. You know, you come home from work and you go out to the restaurant or go out to the bar or just go out someplace. Well, once again, maybe you need an accountability friend who can hold you accountable. In other words, you need to come up with a very practical way to move the line. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah, but you know what? Barriers are restricting, right? If I've got all these rules in place, if I got these fences in place, it's restricting. I can't do what I want to do when I want to do it. But the truth is, barriers are freeing. Barriers between you and sin, between you and destroying your life or causing you grief, it's freeing. Just kind of from Lutheran theology. Remember the three uses of the law? A curb, a mirror, and a guide, right? A curb. Think of a curb when you drive down the street. The curb tells you where it's safe to drive. If you hop the curb, well, then you're in danger to yourself or to someone else. Or a fence. I think of a fence in the backyard. If you let your kids go in the backyard and you got a fenced-in backyard, it protects your children from wandering away, but it also protects your children from dogs or from animals or whatever it is that's on the other side of the fence. It's not restricting, it's freeing. That's why David could write in Psalm 16, Lord, you alone are my portion and my cup. You make my lot secure. Get this, the boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Surely I have a delightful inheritance. Those boundaries, they're freeing. Those boundaries are pleasant. And so one, move the line. Secondly, magnify the cost. It's the art of the long view. Okay, it's looking into the future. If I do this now, what is the worst possible thing that could happen to me in the future? If I do this now, what could go wrong? In other words, ask yourself, what is the worst case scenario? What if the worst case scenario happened? How would that impact my life? I mean, maybe you would lose a relationship. Or maybe it would cause you financial ruin, or you'd lose trust, or your reputation, or your job, or your marriage, or your mission in life. I mean, magnify the cost. If you did this now, what is the worst possible case scenario, and how would that impact your life? That's why in Numbers it says, you have sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sin will find you out. In other words, my friends, there are no secrets. All secrets will come out. I mean, even social sciences tell us that if you cannot keep a secret, eventually that secret will come out. And my friends, don't forget, the devil is prowling around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. The devil is coming for you, and so be ready. We need to decide in advance. And think about this. 5 minutes of sin can wreck your life. So 1, move the line. 2, magnify the costs. And 3, plan your escape. Plan your escape. I mean, these are very practical steps that you can take today. Okay, plan your escape. Remember in Genesis chapter 39, it's the story of Joseph. The scripture says in Genesis 39, verse 6, Joseph was a very handsome man and well built, and Potiphar's wife soon began to look at him lustfully. Come and sleep with me, she demanded. Think of Joseph. I mean, it would have been easy for him to give in, wouldn't it have? I mean, after all, he could rationalize it and justify it in his mind. She made the first move. I mean, it would have been easy for him to fall into that temptation. Or he could have blamed God, right? I mean, God, my brothers threw me into a pit and sold me into slavery. I didn't ask for that. God, I was faithful, and all of this happened to me, and so he could have been angry with God. I mean, he could have rationalized it and justified it in his mind in many different ways. I've heard it said before, do not use disappointments to justify disobedience. Don't do it. Don't come up with the excuses, which we're great at doing, aren't we? We rationalize it and we justify it in my mind. I mean, after all, she doesn't meet my needs, so it's okay if I step out a little bit. Or God put me here. Or I'm just doing what I need to do. No. Those are excuses. We need to decide in advance what I'm going to do, how I'm going to behave, how I'm going to react. We need to have a way out. See, when Potiphar's wife came after Joseph, he said, no deal. I'm not going to do it. Your husband trusts me. And I want you to think about this. So he resisted temptation the first time. Did it stop? I mean, remember the story? Did it stop? No, it didn't. She continued to pursue. My friends, the devil is coming for you. He's going to try to wear you down. And that's exactly what was happening to Joseph. And at one point, Joseph wasn't always strong, but Joseph, he was smart. And Joseph was ready. It was in Genesis 39, starting at verse 11. But one day, when he went into the house to do his work, and none of the other men of the house was there in the house, she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. But he left his garment in her hand and fled and got out of the house. I mean, can you picture that? She grabbed him and said, I want you to sleep with me. But what did Joseph do? He didn't justify it. He didn't rationalize it. He didn't give in to temptation. He left his garment in her hand, and he fled and got out of the house. In other words, it's better to have a good name than a good coat. He wasn't strong enough to resist. So what did he do? He ran from it. He ran from it. He got out. You know, the scripture tells us in 1 Corinthians, God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he also provides the way of escape that you may be able to endure it. In other words, he gives you a door. He gives you a way out. And Joseph physically ran away. He got away from the temptation. My friends, God is faithful. And he is so faithful that he not only provides a way out for us, but when we do mess up, when we do fall short, when we do sin, because of God's faithfulness, because of his love for each and every one of us, because of his mercy, we have the forgiveness of sins. He bought and paid for our forgiveness with his death upon the cross and with his resurrection from the grave. We are loved and we have forgiveness. But that doesn't make grace cheap. We still strive to live for him. You see, most people, once again, they don't plan to wreck their lives. The problem is few plan not to. So I want to challenge you. I want you to remember that the devil is coming for you. And I want you to be honest with yourself. Where are you vulnerable in life? I mean, be honest. Maybe you struggle with greed and with money. Or maybe you kind of struggle with lying a little bit. Or maybe you struggle with lust. I mean, where is it that you're vulnerable in life? Okay, so what do you need to do? Where do you need to move the line? What door do you need to run through? How do you need to look to the future and figure out what the worst case scenario is? So why resist temptation in the future if I have the power to eliminate it today? So where do you struggle? My friends, move the line. Magnify the cost and plan your escape. Because when we know who we are, when we know what our values are, when our values are clear, our decisions are easier. And when our values are clear, we make decisions not based in a temporary emotion or the heat of the moment, but in the permanent values of God in and through Christ. Hey, thanks for joining me. You have a great day. God bless and live love.